Metaverse.
Greetings, I'm Shad, and they say money buys quality. Who says that though?
Money buys happiness?
Money buys
Money
happiness?
buys
Well,
happiness.
it buys swords.
It does buy swords.
And that makes me happy.
And you would want to know, you would want some confidence as to what amount of money you spend gives you the quality to achieve the happiness you want.
Yes.
But there is a limit. Like, I've spoken to people before, they're like, oh, just spend the most amount of money you can on the sword and you get the best quality ever. I'm like, it doesn't work like that.
Exactly.
But they are so determined to think that it does.
Yeah, sometimes people actually think money always buys quality, when no, actually you can get ripped off. And so we have had someone reach out to us, katanasword.com, and they said, we would like to send you a katana for you to review. And then I went back to them and I said, okay, instead of just one sword, send us one of your most expensive swords and one of your cheapest swords, and we'll review them and compare both to see the quality difference.
Now, we
And
have a
so-
bit of a history of comparing katanas to other swords, and we enjoy doing it.
We do.
We do.
I enjoy katanas. I'm a big fanboy of katanas. I don't know if you heard this, seen this. Shad is a bit anti-katana, if we're being honest.
He's still like, you know,
I have
top tier
always
wing.
said
He's
I
top
love
tier wing.
katanas.
What's the best sword in the world, Shad?
Well, that's another video.
It's the katana.
The thing is, though, I don't like things misrepresented, and I address misconceptions in European history, long swords. It's just that there's a lot of misconceptions about the katana, which has caused me to kind of focus in.
Well, we've got that misconception, or one of them, right here, which is money, and the more you spend, the better quality you get. We've got two examples to actually test this out.
And in addition to that, people usually, as a regular thing, say when you're testing katanas, seeing how good they are, they say, well, a traditionally made katana is going to be much, much better and perform much better because of the ingenious way it was made. We've addressed that misconception a lot already. Well, we have a katana here that hits a lot of... Look, katana sword.
This one here is the $200 one. This is the cheap one. We'll just grab this out. I feel like we should add, before we say anything about the blade, the Saya looks...
Cheap.
Cheap. It's the cheapest one.
It looks like you've got brush strokes and just...
Yeah.
So
So
it's done.
this is a $300 katana from katanasword.com.
Wasn't it 200?
I think it's closer to 300.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a battle-ready one.
Now, there is some comparison to be had here with a previous katana that we had, which was around $300 to $400, and that was the Baylor Arms from Cult of Athena.
Oh, that was a nice sword before we ruined it.
Yes, the quality of that sword was actually
Pretty good.
pretty good.
Pretty good.
This, well,
We're
we're all lost for it.
There are some things that are obviously cheap on this sword, like the fittings. Okay, the Suba, like it's obvious it's metal, but it looks and feels
looks
it looks plastic, but it is actually metal. And there's a couple other things like this ray skin underneath the
That's fake. That's fake,
it
yeah.
looks really bad. The wrap isn't terrible.
Yep, we've got to talk about the tip up here.
Yeah.
This grind line here is actually a fake one.
A higher quality katana is actually going to have a geometric difference where you can see the angle,
feel.
and that's actually being ground on. But other than those, the blade is actually, adequate quality steel. It's battle ready, it's sharp.
It is sharp.
So I'm actually quite interested to see how the performance is on this for being one of the more budget range katanas. Bear in mind, you can actually get much, much cheaper katanas than this that are like $50, $100, and those are truly dog crap.
But to be fair here, a lot of the fittings you'll get on those $50 katanas, like the Hibaki and Suba and things like that, are identical. Like they're actually just the same, which is an interesting point because we have our expensive katana here.
This one here, you'll see, but it just feels a bit, oh my God, can't even get the thing out. It just feels a bit wrong. Yeah.
I actually like it. There's a couple things I don't like, but I actually like a number of things on this more expensive one. The Saya, I hate.
Well,
50-50.
I was using it before, and it is very grippy. I really like how grippy it is.
Really?
However, I hate the look of it. It looks very shiny and like...
Diamante. It looks like Diamante.
It looks like sequins.
Yeah, it looks like glitter.
It looks cheap.
But to actually hold it, It's actually really nice. It's very grippy.
Except that it feels a bit plasticky. Like if
And
it
except
had,
this here.
Oh yeah,
there's like a little
molds.
there's like a little nipple injection bit there.
If it felt a bit more organic, like a leather or a snakeskin, I'd be fine with it. But it feels very plasticky.
So a couple of things, right? This one has a thinner handle than the other one, which I actually like. I feel I can grip and get a better hold on it as a result.
Can I hold that for 1 second? Notice anything similar about to?
Okay. So Tyrant has a good point that the habaki is identical.
I know how much it costs.
How much does it cost?
$20
No, wait.
Australian. So
Wait.
like $10 US.
But even so, that's $20 retail after everything else. If you're a manufacturer, that's like what, $1, $2?
Yeah. So a lot of the fittings on both of these swords, 1,000, 200, 300, 500, they're all the same fittings. They're all from China. They're mass manufactured.
These fittings, even though, yeah, probably cost just about as much as make, they look nicer. These
Well-
are nicer looking fittings.
Well, my standard for this is something like a European sword. When you get them, the cross guards and pommels are custom made for that particular piece.
Yeah.
Usually,
These are all just mass manufactured.
It is interesting. Like if you were to get a $1,000 sword, you would usually expect the fittings to match the price range and quality of the sword. And so even though I actually do like the look of the fittings on this more expensive one, I have to acknowledge they have cheaped out on the fittings on this, okay? An area they didn't cheap out on,
Is the blade.
the blade.
To be fair, I actually like bohees more personally.
Yeah.
So I'm not really into this blade profile per se. Well, like I prefer the bohees.
Which for those who don't know, that just means like a little fuller, I'm going to call it a blood groove. It's not a blood groove, but a little fuller.
Yeah, I actually do like, that version as well, but not so much. What I particularly like, and we'll have close-up footage of this blade, this has laminated folded steel.
It
You
does.
can actually see the laminations in the blade, and that just looks gorgeous. And then this is an authentic differentially hardened. You can tell by the way that there's a distinct different kind of, shading look on it. It has a geometric, ground in tip.
Now, both of these blades have a live edge, so we are going to be testing both of them to see which one is worth your money, to be honest.
People say that like, this is a folded katana is going to perform so much better than, a cheaper version. This is the thing though. Modern steels are usually better quality than traditional steels. I will put the caveat, this isn't traditional steel. This is modern steel that has been folded and differentially hardened.
Which means it's actually going to be a little better than Tamahagane that's been folded because it's not going to have little impurities throughout
Yes.
comparatively.
That might be a shock to some of you people who love the katanas. Traditional Tamahagane, I'm not saying Tamahagane that comes from Setetsu that is sourced through modern means, all right? Because if you get very pure Setetsu that's sourced through modern means, it's going to be very pure Tamahagane as a result. No, Tamahagane that's made from traditionally sourced Setetsu, which is iron or sand, and if you don't have magnets to be able to pull out the iron from the silicates and stuff, it's going to have a lot of impurities. That's the reality. That is the truth. We need to figure out the test. So, of course, cutting test.
Yep.
But also durability test against wood.
Sounds good to me.
Thrusting test, but I don't expect too much difference in that.
When you say thrusting test, Chad, does that mean we have to bust out old Betty car door? That's what I named her.
That's news to me.
Yeah, don't worry. I just came up with the name just then.
Well, that went kind of about as expected, but really, I see what you mean. That does feel lighter in the hand. It does feel different.
This one does feel lighter. This is the $1,000 one, and that's the $300 one, $200, whatever it is.
Though I'm a little disappointed in myself. I couldn't get the second cut on the $1,000 one, of all things.
In terms of handling, they honestly felt identical. There was really no difference.
No, and yeah, I admit you're right with that. The weight you can feel, but as soon as they start moving, it's negligible.
Yeah, this one is, like you said before, it does have a little bit of a different weight distribution. It's a little bit top heavier than this one, whereas this one's a little bit lighter, which I prefer, to be honest.
But as soon as they start moving,
yeah.
it really is. Like you wouldn't be able to tell which one you're holding.
Got another test. Yeah.
How destructive are we being this time, though?
We're going to be destructive. We're going to be doing our dreaded wood test. Now, when we do reviews, we usually do on European swords, because we've only really ever reviewed European swords, we use a wood test to finish things out. Now, you are not supposed to use a sword in this way.
No. And they do destroy them, but I mean, that is the point of it. We're putting a sword, now an Eastern sword, up against something that's really not supposed to, which is a solid lump of wood. So we'll just power up and see how well they hold up.
Now, usually when we do the dreaded wood test, we're using spring steel blades, which go back to their original form. However, with a katana, because it is differentially hardened, it'll most likely take a set. We've seen this twice now.
Yes. So for those who don't know, a set just means a permanent bend to the blade. It does have a little bit of spring to it, but not as much, and they're much more rigid. So
let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. It's time.
I believe in you. You can do it. You can hold up. Okay, so 30%. Again.
Wow.
Well, that was all right.
That wasn't too bad at all.
No, so the first cut was like 10%. I feel like second one was maybe 30, but I didn't expect it to go that deep on 30, to be honest.
Now, this is the $300 katana, and it is my turn.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll probably also need these, just in case.
Thank you.
Good luck.
And so far, the sword is still fine. We have no damage. All right, 50.
All right. So we are kind of making a katana look magical. So wasn't exactly our intention, but it's an honest review.
And honestly, this blade is still perfectly fine. We haven't taken any chips out of it. In terms of the fit and finish, the Suba is coming a little bit loose.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Now, these are cheap fittings. I think that's a bit clear, but I'm actually surprised at how well this blade is holding up.
Well, it is also homogeneous steel. So the question is, can the $1,000 katana do the same thing? Because it's not. It's folded, it's differentially hardened, so it's a different beast.
Let's give it a go. It felt worse.
Yeah, it
that
really
actually
did.
felt worse. And it's kind of hard to explain because we've just used the $300 katana, and the $300 katana, it sort of cut it a bit like an axe. It actually felt...
It felt like it had power in it.
Yeah.
That felt like it just reverbed back up the handle.
That's the perfect way to describe it. It actually felt like you were feeling it in the handle, which I did not like.
No.
So we're going to do this again.
Two-handed.
Two-handed.
Pass.
Alrighty.
Yes.
Okay, so in terms of how much
force it can put into things,
I think the results are really clear. I split a 2x4 in half with really not that much power, if I'm being honest.
And if we are to be honest, maybe it chopped a little deeper on the other one, but the chop was only a little deeper. Power transfer is what killed that piece of wood.
Yeah, and this just didn't feel very good, if I'm being honest. Now, this could come down to just the handle construction, but that doesn't make sense because the fit and finish on a $1,000 sword is higher than a $300 sword.
And I see another problem. There is a wave right along there, and there is a set along the blade.
Now, something to note with the set is it took the set in a different video. We actually put this up against the longsword. We mentioned this at the start, and it took a set.
It did. And we fixed it as best as we could. Now, that does mean it is a little bit weaker, but I feel like it's bent at a different point there.
Yeah, now it feels like it's actually not only bent a bit, but it feels like it's actually warped a little bit.
Yeah, and the edge specifically as well.
Yeah. Now, do remember, this is $1,000. And if we're being honest here, we're having some problems with the fit and finish now. Because in here, you can feel the tang moving around. The
Subaru's rattling.
Like we've got issues all the way up this piece now.
I feel really confident about the cheap sword.
These edges are the ones straight from the wood. So whether they're sharp, dull, whatever, or in between, will be borne out in our cut tests.
Yeah.
We're both going to do it like we did before, just
couple of cuts.
Yep.
See how it goes, just a few flowy cuts and see if it works, or see if this thing just flops around now. And we've got a couple of water bowls there to test as well, so we'll see how that goes after the pull needles. You want to go first?
I'm going to start with the $300 because that was one that took it like a boss.
Yeah, it
so
did.
let's give it a go.
Okay. Well, that wasn't so bad, but let's try it with the other one.
300, 1,000. Oh, okay. All right, let's see how this goes. We've finished up all of the testing for today, and the results have been really surprising.
Yeah, very interesting. So I got a couple of bad cuts, not exactly having the greatest day, but when I went to the $1,000 Katana right at the end, they were clean as anything.
A nice cut, a very nice cut. Nicer than I got, actually, with after we're talking about the wood edge at least.
Yeah. And yet, when we went over to the wood, it was the complete opposite.
Yep, the $300 Katana performed wickedly.
Beautifully.
Wicked. And then the $1,000 Katana felt terrible. Like, we're trying to explain to you that it wasn't just how the depth of the cut and how the sharpness of the blades, things like that.
It was definitely the feel. Like, it's just energy transfer. It felt like the cheap blade could transfer all of its energy to the wood. It just felt like it was reverberating back in the hand on the $1,000 one.
Now, something to keep in mention is these are both from the same manufacturer store, and the blade geometry on both of them is identical. So that wasn't the factor. It's actually just come down to something like the construction method. Now, in terms of...
And the steel.
Oh, yeah, of course, and the steel. We also have some fit and finish to talk about here.
Yes.
So, in terms of the fit and finish of swords like these, they all are mass-manufactured parts. They all come from places like China. They're not very expensive. So, to see like the same habaki on a $300 sword versus $1,000, it's kind of disappointing. And I like this habaki. I actually like this one.
But you don't want to see that. You don't want to see something you've spent a lot of money on a cheap version of the same thing.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the $300 sword, we're going to get some B-roll here, but the wrap is actually starting to come undone. It's very loose here, and you can actually start to push down some of the wrap here. That's not a good sign. On this one, it's still very, very tight. So that's a win for the $1,000 Katana. But then we come into things like the fit and finish, and we have rattly parts. Now, the $300 Katana has developed some rattly parts, especially the Suba.
But comparatively, it's nothing. Like, there is the tiniest bit of rattle, but with the $1,000 one, you can feel the rattle. You can feel the tang vibrating. The Subaru is just vibrating around. It's not.
Let me put it this way. I am at the point where I think the $1,000 Katana is no longer safe to use. It is genuinely at a point where the tang is rattling around inside the handle. The pins may have broken, well, at least one of the pins may have broken or deformed at the very least.
It needs to be pulled apart and fixed.
And refit and finish, And then with the $300 one, it's still really well, the blade is still, it didn't take a set, it hasn't got any chipped edges. The worst we're getting is a little bit of a rattly Suba.
But that's nothing. You get that on most any swords. Western, Eastern, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, this is why here at Shadowversity, in a lot of different places, when people start talking about homogeneous steel, they're all in for it. It's just, most of the time, it is a better quality steel and a better option for when you're going for swords.
Yes, the $1,000 Katana does have a nicer blade. This is true, and we've all said this. However, after these tests, this $300 Katana is actually still quite usable. Now, we can get into like personal preference on looks. Like, I don't like the look of the $300 one.
Or even feel like you come to the Saya and it feels like Damonte, but at the same time, like the feel of it is almost kind of nice. almost.
This is a personal preference. I don't like the look of it, but the feel of it I actually like for tactical purposes.
Oh, tactical.
Yeah, it has a lot of grip on it.
Okay, it does. And I don't mind the like turtle shell look here as well. So there is some aesthetic things that we can take into consideration, but function over form, I really feel like the $300 just outdid the $1,000 one, even if the $1,000 one seemed to really get the edge right at the end.
The one that we have right here in front of us, the one that we have received
From katanasword.com.
but we've received this one now because we've had some problems with people who receive, you know, fit and finish issues on other katanas when they buy, or not just other katanas, other swords when they buy from the same manufacturers. So I'm going to say with the $300 katana that we've received here, it's actually not bad.
And I think it sort of puts up the point that if $300 is your budget, you can get a really nice sword, even $200 sometimes.
Yeah.
So not always do you need to go for the $1,000 sword, and not always does the $1,000 sword hold up to every test you're going to put in it.
So I think at the end of the day, it depends what you're really looking for. The $1,000 katana is what I would consider a functional piece.
Yes.
You can use it to cut. It's going to be structurally sound for the most part, unless you're putting it up. So as a wall hanger, something to display, it's beautiful.
It is, because it's more than a wall hanger. It definitely has a full tang. It can survive a little bit of damage, but once it takes a bit of damage, I would actually do the $300 recommendation for those who want to get into practicing cutting, because I think as long as you don't do anything too destructive, something like this, if this is within your price range, is actually really good to start with.
Yeah, but I think that's going to finish us out for today. We genuinely hope you enjoyed. You can support us on Player, Subscribe Star. We have YouTube memberships activated, and we also have Patreon, of course. You can support us there for $1 to $5. It helps us make this sort of content. We love making it, and we hope you enjoy it. And we thank you, katanasword.com, for sending us these review samples. We put them through their paces.
We did.
Would you like to take us out, Nate?
Yeah, because I think that there could be another test that we could do with this $1,000 sword, which is we always hear the longsword versus katana trope, and we're always told the katanas we're not using aren't proper katanas, and this is a proper katana.
Well, luckily for you, we've already done that. There's a video here on Shadowversity where we pit this $1,000 folded steel katana against a
$200
broadsword, longsword.
longsword. It is a longsword, although it is a broader version of the longsword, but it's about the same. And
Details. But you can check that out somewhere here.
so we hope to see you there, but until next time, farewell.